am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me. This is man in Alameda, California. A beautiful day in California, but I just found something that really interesting. It was a beautiful day in the Northeast as well. My guest via Marbell is Tony D'Angelo, returning to the zone from Connecticut. And Tony is an YouTube show kind of guy, like your dear old host. And I'm delighted that we have you back. What do you say, man?
How are you doing, Zig?
Oh, I could not be better today for one reason or another. That's the good news and bad news. I'm as good as it gets. I don't get much better than this. But that is good news. I'm just delighted you guys had a good day because so many of my friends are on the East Coast and we suffered so much this winter. Tell me about, before telling me about the good day, tell me about most days this winter for New Yorkers and tri-state area folks like yourself.
Well, we actually thought going into the first of the year, and good day, everyone. We actually thought going into the first of the year that it wasn't going to be that bad. We had a couple little sprinkle showers, storms missed us, a little bit of rain, a little bit of freezing rain on the roads. Okay. Then, starting the first of the year, it really felt like we were sitting in a snow globe. It never, ever, ever stopped. And it was the volume, the cold, buildings collapsed because of the weight of the snow. I mean, I can't remember. Now, I grew up in Stamford, Connecticut, and I can't remember snow like that kind of intensity and frequency and amount. It's, some people say it's a result of global warming, and other people are like, well, there's your global warming for you.
Well, there's an oxymoron available. I think when they say global warming, and I'm a real big ecology person, it is a misnomer. It should have been named sort of climate change, because it doesn't always mean warming. But there's another thing going on, you know. If you're one of those that believes that the Earth didn't start with Adam and Eve, and that we did have dinosaurs indeed, then way back we've always had a cycle on Earth of changing weather, getting warmer for a while, getting colder, snow, melt, this, that, the other thing. Going on billions of years. So a lot of this may not be as man-made as advertised, but we certainly contribute our fair share as human beings to warming it up.
Oh, yeah, there's absolutely no doubt as to that.
Yeah, and my kid was born 2 days before the first Earth Day 25 years ago.
Wow, and, okay, I remember that.
Yeah. Did you remember talking to Diane and all that? No, you didn't, did you? Life isn't all that easy.
No, I was a junior high school kid, but I do remember it.
I remember it. As the boy's mom, my son met a previous coitus, if you will, and she'd done good. He's 25. And he just celebrated his birthday a few weeks ago, and I'm happy for him that he made it this far, and that he hates war. He loves animals, and he's loyal to his friends, and he enjoys life, and the first thing he does is have fun, which is the way I taught him, because that's what it's about. So, speaking of fun, podcasting, doing shows, doing YouTube stuff, it's fun for both of us, isn't it? And I wonder what makes it fun for you.
It's fun when you can do everything the way you had it. Your guests are on time. They're talkative, and I'll tell you, I mean, there's nothing greater than that. Now, we've had a number of, thankfully, Zig, not a large number, but we've had a few in the past, like, yeah, I'll be there, and they never show up, and, well, you know, you end up doing more tap dancing than Fred Astaire. And then it's the kind of thing of, I'm sorry, I'm this, I'm that. We had a situation here, and this was, let me see, probably about 7 years ago. A member of the Monkees, I'm not going to mention him by name because I wouldn't want to embarrass him, but he lives close to this area, and he was supposed to actually come into the studio and do an interview with us, and we had such excitement. We had everybody waiting for him. We had all watched the Monkees, and the man did not show up. And we found out later that he has, I don't know what the term is, but he has no self-drive, if you will. Someone has to lead him and say, okay, Charlie, not your real name, you know, this is where we're going today. And his manager had left at 4 o'clock that afternoon, and we were on at 9, and he was like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it. He just couldn't bring himself to do it. But yet he can perform in front of thousands of people. I mean, go figure. So it's just...
that in itself makes for a very interesting experience. So even if it goes bad from logistical...
I'm sorry, I'm losing you a little bit, Zig.
But I was just saying that experience makes for an interesting time of it. Even though it didn't go as planned, you had a life experience, you got to see how someone reacts in a way that you wouldn't expect them to react. Like you say, they perform before 30,000 people, they ought to be able to show up at the second studio. That's, are you still there?
I'm barely, I'm getting like every second word.
Okay, let me try a different position on this and see if it works better.
Does this work better?
Oh, much better, thank you.
Oh, good. I was just saying that the experience you had with your monkey friend was at least an interesting one, and that's what this thing is all about. It's the unplanned stuff that makes this job, if you will, or this fun experience what it is, too. So, anyway, what I admire most about your shows is that they are technically well done. Voices don't jump in and out, stuff like that. But let's talk a little Mets baseball. They won today. Yeah, if you don't mind, you're an avid Mets fan. I'm an avid Mets fan. Want to share? I don't know if I asked you this one before, your first game when you were a kid.
Well, yeah, I'm more than happy to. It was in 1962 at the Polo Grounds. I was 6 years old. I went with my father, my brother, and my mother, and I actually was at a game the year before. I was at a game in 1961, which was a Yankee game, and our late recently deceased friend, Earl Averill, actually hit a home run in that game, but I don't remember any of it. All I remember is that I was in the bleachers, I was hot, I was thirsty, and I wanted to go home. But when I got to the Polo Grounds and the Mets, I thought, this is the neatest thing. I never knew this historic stadium existed, and look at the Mets in the really cool blue uniforms, and you look across the river and you see the Yankee Stadium and the white letters and the green background, and the Rheingold sign and the flags, and I fell in love. I became a devoted Met fan that day. It was, I can remember they would play, this is before the days of Jane Jarvis playing the organ, the Queen of Melody at Shea. somebody, interestingly enough, who I had the pleasure of meeting in the 1980s, and just a remarkable lady. And you know, I'm digressing, but she.
No, please do. Tell me about Jane. She was a Brooklyn Dodger performer, actually, an organist.
Yeah.
And went on when the Dodgers left in '57. I don't know what she did. I don't know if she played in the church or.
Well, she actually worked as an executive for a music company, and she was recently separated from her husband, and she started to play the ballpark organ at night because, frankly, she needed the money. When she was done playing the game, now this makes me, whenever I think about this, I laugh so hard. She went into the Diamond Club and took requests for 2 hours.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
You know, Serenade in Blue, Sentimental Me, you know, just whatever. And then she probably went back to Manhattan, came back the next night, and did it again and again and again. But what a nice way to work a musician.
Yeah, that's it. And you got to meet her, and she was on the show.
No, I never got to, you know, I met her in the 1980s. She passed on, I think, about maybe actually before I actually started doing shows. I never got to interview her, but I did speak with her, and she was really not a sports lady, really. I mean, she liked the Mets. She had a high regard for Gil. Interestingly enough, and this is like Mets trivia, beyond Mets trivia, but at the end of the Met games, the song she would play would be the Lawrence Welk Goodnight song. And it was, when she started doing that, like when I would say in the mid to late 1960s, it was the one you heard on the shows. It was the very upbeat Goodnight song. But when Gil passed on, it was a very sad and melancholy refrain of the Goodnight song, which would almost bring you to tears. And that was, she had mentioned, that was her tribute to Gil. And then the fact that, you know, her heart was broken because Gil didn't get to live out his years on Earth and, you know, be the Mets manager, you know, as he should have.
Oh, yeah.
But,
and I know how the Mets executives and the decision makers, M. Donald Grant and all those people took it, how hard they took it when at Gil's funeral they introduced Yogi Berra as the manager. Did you know that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, and I've been a Met fan since '61 when they formed it, when Branch Rickey forced them into forming it by threatening to have another league.
Open a new league,
yeah. And so I go way back with the Mets, and I've been embarrassed by them a number of times. Never more than when they did that when Gil passed away. I mean, they took it as a photo op. They took it as an experience that would get them press at his frickin' funeral. It just absolutely blew me away. They've done a number of things over the years. One of the things that I believe they're doing at this point is trying to get to Lewinsky on the cheap. And with the whole idea that if they don't get them, at least they could say they tried, and there was stuff going on in the background, and we really did try. We didn't, we didn't want to try to put anybody in a position of putting more pressure on the existing shortstops, all that stuff. But if they do get them and they fail, then they can always go to that, and it buys them more time to go on, keep on keeping on, as I always say.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They don't want to come back, because I'll tell you, with the excess in pitching they have, they need hitting desperately. Right may never come back. Who knows, as transparent as this organization is, the real Ponzi's and all that, we don't know what's going on. You like that expression, right?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, because you're a Met fan and you know that this owner should not be having our team. It's ridiculous. It's a joke. And baseball is more of a joke. They named him. I don't know if he accepted the position or he gracefully bowed out because people were peeing in their pants. They were laughing so hard when baseball named him to the Financial Executive Committee of Baseball.
Well, you know, and I go back to, you know, it's the old Watergate thing of what did you know and when did you stop knowing it? And if you go back to that original sheet of the Madoff victims, the people who had money, who were the claimants and things like that, it was very funny because there's a sports economist, Andrew Zimbalist. We had interviewed him the night that all of this, Bob Lazari and I, had interviewed him the night this all became public. And I had said, how much of the net money is tied up in Wilpon? He said, well, very little. They're very good businessmen. Well, it turned out not to be the case. When you opened up the sheet, you saw Sterling Mets, Sterling Equities, and not only that, Zig, but you saw Sandy Koufax, you saw Tim Tuffle, and it's like, you know, they were quote-unquote spreading the wealth around, you know, or so it seemed. Now, that's not to infer that Sandy Koufax or Tim Tuffle knew anything. I think to the contrary. They trusted Fred. And look what Fred did to them. You know, it's like,
and he had to have known money doesn't grow on trees like that.
No.
And it's false economy. If you think it's too good, this is too good to be true. You're right.
You're right.
It's too, yeah. And poor Sandy Koufax is back with the Dodgers, basically, as an instructor with them. He left him very, very bad. Left a very, very bad taste in his wallet. I mean, it's not just it's taken. He should be living with no money worries whatsoever. Did he get greedy? Sure. I mean, the economy is greedy, but there should be at the level of the pyramid that Rapunzel is in, the fact that he still owns a baseball team and that he cries poor mouth in the New York tri-state area with the New York Mets is just, it's beyond belief. I mean,
and Sandy Koufax, it's hard for him because he is such a painfully shy man. He'd rather not be seen at all. He'll go out and circulate, but purely, and as the spirit moves him, and he's not one that wants to have any sort of, you know, ties to, you know, I need to do this to pay my rent. And at his age and, you know, his stage and what he did for baseball, he shouldn't have to. He shouldn't have to.
So it's, and what bothers me, because I happen to be Jewish by culture, it's not religion, is that it's Jews ripping off Jews. You know, Rapunzel and all this shit, and it sets, it makes for grist for stereotypical bullshit. And it doesn't do anybody any good. It doesn't do humanity any good. And he owns my baseball team. And I can't even play out my option. I just had, and I knew that in '62 when I had been a Giant fan until the Mets came. I tried to follow them in San Francisco and what have you, living back there. And the Mets were horrible in '62, and the Giants won the pennant in '62. And I didn't regret sticking with the Mets because, you know, they come in at the 60,000, but
I'm sorry, Zig. I'm starting to lose you again.
Oh, okay. Here, let me get over here. So let's try this. Is this better?
Much better.
Okay, let's just try the antenna this way. Okay, so your take on the rest of the season. We've had a win streak, and I slipped a little bit.
My poor and humble opinion, they're just not gripping, you know, when you think, when I think of the Met team winning, if you look at all them, and I'm not a scientific observer of anything, but if you look at the 69 team, if you look at the 73 team, and if you look at the 86 team, even to a certain extent the 88 team, which went far but didn't get quite that far, which was a very good team. And that's before they started, Gooden and Strawberry started getting into things they shouldn't have, and, that whole sad tale. But each one of those teams had sort of an underlying emotional purpose where they were playing together. You came to the park or you turned on the TV and you watched really exciting baseball, and you saw games won that you thought were lost, and you'd shake your head and say, how does this team do it? And then they put games and win streaks together, and there was a lot of fan excitement. There is great talent on this Met team, and I'm not going to...
The pitching staff is incredibly talented. I've never seen anything like the young pitchers they have. They got more guys coming up. They got bats coming up. And it's terrific. So can't they balance it? Can't they do something to balance that out? And what is it, Granderson, just a thought that hit me, is starting to be Granderson again with the bat. Yeah. Which leads me to believe that he will get pitches for other guys in the lineup and will make everybody better, and hopefully they'll get right back. And so I'm enthused, but only as far as the shortstop will take me. And I know that it's very difficult to win without being strong up the middle. They're very strong in center, they're very strong catching. And I think Wilson is the guy at second. I think Tejada's the better shortstop, and I think if they can get right back with Murphy coming off the bench and Tejada at short, they could afford his weak bat, and he's a much better fielder. But that's just my opinion. What do you think, Tony?
I think, put it this way, talent is there, but they somehow need a soul, and that was the thing. I think that was the word I was looking for. And all of the Met teams in the past that won, they gripped the fan base, and then they later gripped the city. And I just feel with the talent that's here, which is great talent. I mean, it just doesn't hit me right, and I can't explain this scientifically. I could only explain it, Zig, in the most hazy of terms, but this is not, there's just not something emotional here that's like, wow, this is a great Met team, and they're beating people, and they're going to do it. I'm just not getting that, even though I am respectful of the talent. Terry Collins, I respect. I think he is a great baseball man. I think he's very devoted to the game. I just can't see him taking this team to the World Series. And for some reason, I just don't, is Wally Backman your answer? Is he the second coming of Billy Martin? We'd like to think so, but I think that Wally Backman might ignite the fan base in a way that Terry Collins just isn't going to. Because
if they hadn't fired Bobby Valentine,
yeah,
I think he might have been. He's from Connecticut too, as you well know.
Yeah, we went to the same high school. He's a few years ahead of me.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, and maybe Andy Robustelli from Connecticut, no doubt.
Well, to us poor little Stanford kids, he was Mr. Robustelli, but yes, he was a frequent. It was interesting, if you went to a banquet in Stanford, back in maybe like my 70s, it was Andy Robustelli would frequently show up. Mel Allen was the master of ceremonies. He was... Oh, wow. He'd always come up and, like Little League or Babe Ruth League or something, and he'd be like, I can't do a really great Mel imitation, but pleasure having you all here. People ask me how I started broadcasting, and I told them I didn't start broadcasting. I was a lawyer. I passed the bar in Georgia, and I haven't passed one since. Everybody just...
he was, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Melvin Allen Israel.
No, Melvin Allen Israel. Yeah. The voice of the Yankees.
Oh, yeah. And there was another voice of the Yankees. That was the public address announcer.
Oh, Bob Shepard.
Bob Shepard.
Him once, too. What a gentleman.
What's your favorite number? What number did you wear in Little League? Yeah.
Well, I never got to wear it, but I think it started out being 7, like so many.
Like so many. All right, listen to this. Now batting for the Mets, number 7, Tony Angelo. Number 7. So now I know you'll always keep this podcast.
Well, thank you. You know, I worked with a guy years back in New York. Bob Shepard was a professor of speech at St. John's University. And yeah, and he took the PA job because he needed extra money. And and he had
I didn't know that.
I'm sorry?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he had an interesting second career that was kind of a cottage industry. He was doing wedding announcements on CDs for couples, so that when the wedding party was announced, there was the Yankee music and the Star Wars, and we don't have a wedding party, and he was actually calling up these couples and asking them, how do I pronounce your name?
Because his voice was his voice. It wasn't affected. Right. It wasn't something that he turned on, and it didn't come over as being affected. It was perfect diction. Right. He had perfect diction. He was he was just terrific and always there. Never missed. Oh no, guy would come up as a pinch hitter. Never. On Seabound, never missed a thing. Just a delight. If the Giants and Dodgers hadn't moved, I wouldn't have been to Yankee Stadium and seen those great teams in the 60s. The one in 61 that you referred to, arguably the best team in history. I mean, you can say that. Mantle, Maris, it was that year. Blanchard, Berra, and Howard each hit 20 home runs. The 3 catches they had, they were pretty good. So it was nice growing up where we grew up, huh?
Well, I'll tell you, it was a great time to watch baseball. The thing that I tell people, and they don't, it's watching baseball today is like a patchwork quilt of what cable system carries what game, and I've got the MLB package, and I'm in the East Coast, so if I want to do the Yankee game in real time, I'm stuck with the audio until the game is over, and then I go to the video, but yet I can watch the Dodger game, like I was just watching the Dodgers in Dodger Stadium, play Colorado. It's just so weird, but I would say I would take the little black and white TV with the antenna every night there was a game, or, watching the Met games, and, what I don't understand anymore, and this makes me absolutely positively crazy, the best camera angle for watching a ball game, as far as I'm concerned, is behind the catcher. And the old Met game, that's what they did. They put the camera right behind the catcher. So you got to see Seaver throw to Mays, like, close up. You got to see throw to Willie Davis, close up. And today everything is behind the pitcher. And yet I would sit and watch this, and it was all for free. And, it was Lindsay, Ralph, and Bob, and just talking about baseball, and it was so much fun. And it saddens me, Zig, that we're not going to see that again. Even though I'm very happy I do.
No, we were talking via message thing of what we were going to talk about, and I mentioned that we could do a necrology of people who are passing away. I mean, anybody you touch on, when you hear they died, this one, kind of start with Earl Averill, because he and I had been communicating about coming on the show, and a couple of months ago, he told me he was getting ready for something, get back to me, and it just never happened, and apparently he was sick for a while, and he was the first catcher the Angels ever had. He was drafted in 1960, and turned out to be my very good friend in life, the late Marv Grissom, was the pitching coach of that Angel team. And Bill Ringley was the manager, and I was drawn to them because they had the colors were a little different. The colors were blue and red instead of, but they were the same colors, they were the same unis as the old New York Giants, which San Francisco Giants have done well over the years in keeping it classy and traditional. But it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same. The Giants-Dodger rivalry was something to behold, and it just kept the spirit in the city of you root for one of those three teams, and you have bragging rights. And we, growing up, I felt it was a birthright to have the World Series played in my town every year. And literally for like 12 years in a row, it was the Giants, Dodgers, and the Yankees were in the World Series. So it was good days. Tony, what you got going that you want to talk about? Could you tell people how to get to your show the best way?
Oh, you're most kind. Well, currently I'm doing...
Well, I'm one of a kind, but that ain't a compliment. Go ahead.
Well, currently, actually, this would be the 8th year we're doing Monday Night Sports Talk here in Eastern Connecticut. We do it on the local cable channel. I'm pleased to work with my good friend and consummate professional, Bob Lazzari, who has, what Harry Cosell used to say about Sonny Liston, he has a police record as long as your arm. Well, Bob has a repository of columns going way back, and we started doing this, I believe it was 2008. It's sort of been the, shall we say, like the punctuation point. We've done it through thick, through thin, through times of feast and fast and famine and joy and bereavement, and we continue to do this show. We've put together quite a list of people whom we have interviewed over time. That, if you want to see the interviews, I do post them on Facebook when they come in, but the site is YouTube, Monday Night Sports 14, or the website is www.mondaynightsports.net. I have been hosting Connecticut Morning, and that's the easiest place to reach that is Facebook.com/Connecticut Morning. We're building a new studio. We'll be back on soon. Yeah, we were in New Haven doing the show, and we decided to take it upstate where we could, as we used to say in our days, let it all hang out. And I'm looking forward to getting back to that really soon. And what I'm doing now, sort of a third endeavor, is something that never really envisioned myself doing. CBS Radio has a sort of a subsidiary, which is a nonprofit known as Gateway Radio for the blind and the hearing impaired and the folks with disabilities. And I do a financial piece every week, and you can. If you go to Gateway Radio on the internet, or CBS Gateway Radio, you can actually play the broadcasts, and you'll hear me in the mix of some incredibly fine, long-time CBS professionals, and I don't deserve to be playing on this field, but I'm honored to do so. I've met some really neat people because of it, so I have to laugh because my father worked in show business, and his brother and his other brother. They were technicians. They worked on Broadway. They did lighting and sound and things like that. And a couple of my cousins, my cousin Tony, were both after the same uncle. Norman Lear's lighting director for many years. You can see him credit some of all the families, Tony Sestair. But
what genius went into their shows? Absolutely. Normally, I mean, that one show, Carol O'Connor is from Jackson Heights, and I don't know Jackson Heights, but he went to my high school in Newtown, and Rickles is from Jackson Heights, and so I followed that show very, very carefully in terms of social change that this country was going through, how Archie put a little humor in the thing there to keep us from killing each other and making the generations who were just, it brought generations together because they were apart. If people were calling the kids meathead, and they weren't laughing about it.
And it was funny. His character developed as it went on. He started off being a sort of a rough and tumble New York guy, cussing at the meathead, and everything was this or that. But later on, when Edith passed on, and he had the show where he had the bar with his Jewish partner, and he was found himself in a different world, and he had sort of come to peace with the fact that the world had changed, even though he really didn't fit in it. But yet he would show that disgust, but yet he showed a warmer side to his personality. I mean, it's just a testimony to what a great actor Carol O'Connor was.
And they had the good sense to bring in that little niece or whoever she was.
Exactly.
Kid always plays well and stuff like that. But it would never replace the look on his face when he knew that the meathead was going to plow his little girl there. He's a great actor. That's supposed to be that there. Edith, I got a hand that's sticking out, and there isn't your beer in it. And, I'll get it for you. Well, thank you very much, dear. I'm still waiting. Sense of entitlement of a male growing up in the 50s, that kind of thing.
Well, and some of those characters like Jefferson and Frank and Irene Lorenzo, and oh man, it's just... It was amazing, but said all that to say this. My father would always try to get me interested in shows. I wanted nothing to do with him. I wanted an office job, and now I'm sure he's laughing uproariously at me, doing as I'm doing, but it's fun.
That's funny because I wanted to be the voice of the New York Yankees. And my father, instead of saying, wow, if it can't be that, you'd be the voice of the Cubs or the voice of this or that. That's great. You love it. He fucked it up. He just killed the dream. So that for a long time, I worked in an office. I sold insurance, but kind of thing, because I was afraid to, Jewish boy, you got to live up to whatever it is that they're setting up, making
the bar is high. The bar is high.
Yeah. Well, for all it's worth, when he passed away, I got to be me, and I lived out his retirement. He died at 62. And I realized at 28 that, there's no guarantee that you're going to live forever, and this working is nuts. But you pay the price one way or the other. Either you pay the price by working too hard, or you pay the price by not working hard enough. It's just a crazy world. So that it brings us full cycle when a guy like Koufax pays the price, and there is a price to be paid for what he did. Even though, yes, he was great, it takes a tremendous price that you pay on your body, physically, mentally, on the road, away from family, that sort of stuff. And then to be fucked out of the bucks at the end, that ain't good. That ain't good. But, as my old friend David would say, that's the way it goes. First your money, then your clothes. I'd like to end it on a much higher note, so I will. I'm going to tell you that in the next segment, I talked to a fellow who was running for state senate in Southern California, a county called Ventura County.
Right.
He was a child actor in the Bad News Bears. So we got to talk about the experience of making the Bad News Bears and getting into politics. Very interesting guy. His name is David Pollock. So we're going to take a break and come back with him. And Tony, what a thrill. You'll keep coming back, I hope, more often than once a year.
Put it this way, you got my name, my number, you call me, and I'll come running, kid. I love this. Thank you.
Oh, that's really nice to hear, because I just enjoyed you now twice, and I know the ODI will and has as well. So, till that time, my friend, I'm going to end the segment as I do every one. I implore you, my friend, and all my friends out there, to keep your dreams wet and your humor dry. Keep your children and grandchildren out of the offices of military recruiters, and keep them off the laps of clerks that wear dresses just to be on the safe side. They're not all bad people. Just to be on the safe side, it's always a good idea. Some frolic, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah? Yeah, happens. What are you going to do? So, forewarned by folks. It's a good idea. Keep on keeping on, and we'll catch you on the flip-flop, Tony.
Good night, Zig, and good night to everybody in San Francisco, and we'll talk soon, my friend.
You're a polite gentleman. You didn't say fuck once. I'm sorry. I'm thinking, why do I have to say the word, or why do I have to express things there? Because I am. I am what I am. What can I say? It comes out. Sometimes before I think about it.
Trouble without having to say one swear word, so that's,
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Catch you soon, man.
Okay, take care, pal. Bye.
I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zigzag Man, in Alameda, California, in Northern California. And my guest today is from Southern California, Ventura County. Please help me welcome to the show for the first time. I guess you can give a round of applause from at home or wherever you're listening to the Comfortability Zoned Network. Please help me welcome David Pollock. How are you, David?
I'm just fine. Thanks, Ralph. How about yourself?
I'm doing really well, and I'm glad you joined me on the show. You're kind of a renaissance man. You're running for state senator in Ventura County, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it's the 27th State Senate District. It actually covers eastern Ventura County, the western San Fernando Valley.
Okay, and I noticed that one of your big issues is smog, and Southern California is famous for that. I happen to be very familiar with Ventura County because I did a baseball gig back in the 80s and 90s and covered minor league baseball, California League, and Ventura was a franchise. Ventura had a franchise down there, and I know there's a nice mall in Ventura. Am I correct?
Yes, there is, but I didn't know that.
All right.
About the that's
and there's a hell of a smog problem. So, just out of curiosity, because we're up north and it's a little less prevalent, the smog is, but what's being done? What's changed since in the last few years since you've been involved?
Well, first a little bit of history. It is different down here. the Los Angeles area used to be called by the Indians here as the Valley of Smoke. And the reason is we have an inversion layer that sits over us. It's a high-pressure system that gives us our beautiful sunny days most days, but also serves to trap pollutants below 5,000 feet. When I used to teach flying out of Santa Monica Airport, and it was when you would pop through that inversion layer, it was just startling how suddenly everything was crystal clear, and you didn't realize how blurred things were down below. And I grew up in the old Valley. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, when the smog clears UCLA.
Well, no, actually what you see is that the top of the smog layer that's kind of blanketing LA, and it's
oh, okay. All right. So
now this is back in the 80s when things were a lot worse, and where we kind of used 1990 as a milestone now for what we want to get back to or back under in terms of air pollution. But I remember growing up as a kid, playing outside when we didn't really know much about smog, and going home not being able to take a deep breath without a stabbing feeling in the side. And what I was breathing, believe it or not, is ozone. We talk about smog, and it's a number of things, but the thing that really impairs our breathing is ozone. So ozone is good, high up in the stratosphere, where it protects us from harmful radiation. But down on the ground, it's very harmful, and that's our main problem that we're still combating. Now I'm also on the Air Pollution Control Board for Ventura County, and our biggest problems here are the inland valleys, particularly Ojai Valley and Simi Valley, for the same exact reason. They get that high pressure system that sits over them and kind of traps the pollutants within the valley because it has nowhere to escape. So we have to combat that in a number of ways. The way we end up with ozone at the ground level is through a process where nitrogen oxides mix with what they call reactive organic compounds, and you put a lot of sunshine on top of that, and presto changeo, you have smog. So that's why we're really clamping down on nitrogen oxide emissions and reactive organic compounds.
David, where'd you learn to fly? Just out of curiosity.
I learned to fly at Santa Monica Airport.
Okay.
This was really my I'd saved up some money when in my late teens and started taking flying lessons. It turned into a passion, and I became a commercial pilot and a flight instructor myself, teaching people to get their private pilot's license out of Santa Monica Airport.
And I know you were a child actor. I didn't know you knew I know that. But you were in one.
You did your research.
I got to do homework once in a while. I didn't do it in high school, and that's why I'm doing it now. It's 50 years later. I got to make up for it. But you were a child actor, and ironically, you were a cast member of one of my favorite all-time movies. Anything to do with baseball is always great for me. But the movie being The Bad News Bears, and it starred Walter Matthau, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it did. Yeah, that was,
all right.
Gosh, 40 years ago. We filmed that
now,
in San Fernando Valley.
Was your dad or mom in the biz? How did you get involved?
My mother wasn't. My father was a publicity agent, so he had some connections. He was able to help me find a talent agent when I started, and I was about 9 years old when I started in the business. No, actually 8 years old. And okay. I just took it from there.
Tell me what the process is, what the casting process is. Is it like I did comedy for a lot of years. We had a lot of just roll calls. You go down there and you stand there and you stand in line and they talk to you. And is it a lot like that, or what's it like?
It depends. It depends. Some interviews you'd go to what we call cattle calls, where you find yourself in a room with 100 other, 100 other kids that look strangely like you, and you're all trying out for the same part. that
Okay.
that's not fun. But most cases it was you'd go there and there'd be one or two other people perhaps in the lobby, and they're interviewing you one at a time. Typically they're looking to fill a specific part.
So
but
they were looking
very
at,
competitive.
and they had, I'm sure it is, they had the specific parts in mind for the kids, and they were just trying to match up the kids with the parts, or did they create parts for special, kids that were precocious or looked like they could carry stuff? Were they flexible, or was it all by the book?
It depends. For mostly what I did were television commercials, and they were a little bit more flexible because their main focus is selling a product. For television shows and motion pictures, though, they have a script, and the script has identified certain characters. So they're definitely trying to find actors that will flesh out that character in the script. And in the case of the Bad News Bears, they interviewed all over the country.
Oh, really? Okay. Did they bring them, and then they brought the finalists to L.A.? Was that how it went?
Yes, they took us to the back lot at Paramount and just had us throw some balls around and just got to know us a little bit. And then when we were cast, we all sat down around a table and read through the script and just kind of developed it from there. Interesting story from that process. The character I played in the Bad News Bears was in the script was called Lefty Stein. And I pointed out in rehearsals that not only was I not left-handed, I wasn't very good at pitching with my right hand either. And Walter
you fit
Matthau,
right in. That's typecasting with the Bears.
Exactly. But what
was Walter Matthau like? Did you have an interaction with him?
Oh yeah, no, we spent 10 weeks with him every day filming, and he was delightful. We really enjoyed working with him. He was teaching us. He was a mentor to us. So we all looked up to him, both literally and figuratively. And he was a delight to work for. And in fact, the very fact that he was easy to work for is really what made the chemistry in the movie work so well. You found out when we made the sequels to it that it wasn't the same.
Okay. What would you tell your kid? Would you tell your kid to get into that? Would you encourage your kid based on your experiences? Did you have negative experiences I'm sure you didn't get every part you tried out for, and I'm sure, it's like anything else, the ups and downs. Is it something you'd want your kid to do? If you had a child, rather than a kid?
I have two children. They're both grown now, so we went through that with them, and my advice to them was that if they do it, only do it because you really love it. Don't do it because you think it might be a fun thing to do, because it's most of the time it's not fun. It's very competitive, and you have to deal with disappointment frequently.
Right, and once the filming gets started, I'm sure there's a lot of waiting around and hanging, and it's not your shots. What do they do for the kids? Do they read books or any activities, or it's just hang?
Oh yeah, no, we go to school. The California labor laws require that our schooling not be interrupted just because we're professional actors. So we had teachers on the set, and we were required to spend at least 3 hours a day studying, an hour a day of rest, and 4 hours working. And they had welfare workers from the State Department of Labor Law Enforcement on the set to make sure those laws were observed.
Wow, very interesting. So from there, you're in politics. That's 40 years later. What got you into politics? And why do you think you'd be the best senator Ventura County ever had?
Well, I blame my kids for the politics. When they started going to school, I wanted to have a hand in the quality of the schools they were going to. And at the time, the school board was forming what they called a Committee for Effective Schools. They wanted a group of citizens, teachers, administrators, parents, a whole group of, I think it was 29 people, to look at what makes elementary schools effective and recommend to the school board steps they can take to step up the quality of our elementary schools. I ended up chairing that committee, and we made a number of recommendations that essentially recommended that they become charter schools long before charter schools were in vogue. And they implemented what we recommended, and it was to great success. But the same group also encouraged me to run for the school board to kind of watch over the recommendations to make sure that the school board followed through. So that was the slippery slope that I stepped onto. I served on the school board.
That was your first campaign. That was your first campaign. Am I correct?
Correct. When I ran for school board.
Okay. Was that what you might consider, looking back, a dirty campaign, a clean campaign, a fair campaign? How do you? Well, I mean, it's your first time.
It was my first campaign. I really didn't know exactly what I was doing. I just went by what seemed the right thing to do, and that was just knocking on every door I could think of. Every spare hour I had, I'd be out canvassing and knocking on doors and talking to people. And by the way, there wasn't an open seat on the school board at the time. I had to defeat an incumbent to get in, and fortunately, I didn't know how difficult that was.
Okay. Did you do anything to prepare yourself that you're carrying over to this election, or are you learning by some of the mistakes you made, even though you won? I'm sure it didn't go swimmingly every day. What would you do differently? What did you learn that you'll do differently in this campaign?
Well, I've won 6 other elections since then, and I learned something from every one.
Okay.
Times change, technology changes. Everything changes, and I've gotten involved with some of the larger campaigns countywide here, and that was educational, because it is a little bit different when you can't knock on every door when you've got hundreds of thousands of doors to knock on. It gets a little bit more tricky. But still, the principle's the same. It's active campaigning is always more effective than just sending a piece of mail or even doing a television commercial. You still have to do some of that, but it's that personal touch that impress people and make them to vote for you.
Do you look ahead to other elections, or are you just taking it one position at a time? Do you have any long-term plans? You're incredibly articulate and well-spoken and forthcoming, and that's unusual in the field that you've chosen. So I'm delighted to talk to you. Yeah, it shows through. And I live up here in Alameda. We just elected a new mayor who went through a grassroots campaign against the incumbent, and she came from the school board. And I think it's a tremendous advantage, because I think that's the number one social problem in this country is, preschools and, seeing the kids get success along the way. And a lot of counties, a lot of cities just don't have the funding. There's an incredible imbalance as to, for instance, in Alameda, 79% of the city budget goes to the police and the fire department. 79% of the budget. That's crazy. So your main concern has been one way is getting allocated money.
I'm sorry, Ralph, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Okay, I'm just saying that probably your biggest problem is getting money your way. Whatever position, if you're on the school board, you want money allocated towards, from the city budget towards the schools. How do you fare that way? What are your skills along?
Well, the situation with money is that schools aren't funded by cities mostly. San Francisco is an exception because the city has allocated some money to supplement schools, but most of the money, in fact, almost all the money that schools get is from the state, and the state uses property taxes, income taxes, and sales taxes to make that happen. And because of some lawsuits in the 1970s, the state is required to allocate that money. It used to be that school boards would assess their own taxes locally based on their property tax base, and that was found not to be equal protection under the law, and because we had vastly different amounts of spending per student depending on the community you happen to be born into. So the states is
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, so the state's been allocating the money since the 1970s, and for a long time, the objective was equality in funding, kind of spreading the money around equally. But now they've gone to a different model called local control funding formula, and that tries to allocate the money more equitably so that the children most in need are getting more money to pay for their education.
That's nice. That's a good way of doing it. Tell me about the candidate you're running against.
I'm sorry, Ralph, I'm having trouble hearing you again.
Would you tell me about the candidate that you're running against, and what would you say is their strengths, and how do you differ in philosophy?
Ralph, I can barely hear you, or just like you're on the microphone. Oh.
Boy, I'm sorry, because we're at the mercy of Ma Bell here. Is this better?
Oh, much better.
Oh, good. Okay. I just wanted to know who you are running against, what their strengths are, and what your basic differences are, and what do you think is their strong point, and what do you think is their weak point?
Well, it's early in the campaign. There are a number of candidates that have formed committees. We don't know if they're all going to follow through, so it's kind of early to try and handicap. So I know that there's only one other candidate in the race that has any experience as an elected official, and she's a school board member from the Hart Union High School District. And then there are a number of other candidates that have various experience, mostly in the offices of other legislators.
What's your strength? If you had to name one strength, what's your strength?
Well, I think my strength is experience. I spent over 20 years in local government. I know how to run campaigns, certainly. But more importantly, I think that's given me a good grounding and understanding what's really important at the ground level and to the grassroots. And I have a lot of great grassroots support.
Speaking of grassroots, on a national level, Bernie Sanders just declared this past week. I don't know if you run on party lines down there, or is everybody an independent?
No, where we are, no, it's definitely partisan, and that's new for me. I'm not. I've never been in a partisan race before. It's always been at the and people forget that at the local level it is nonpartisan, and generally people don't even particularly care what your party registration is. They want to know what your vision is for the community. It's a different world, stepping into partisanship. And as I'm sure that Bernie is finding out, because he's having to he had to pick a side to get involved in that level. And as far as what I think I think Bernie is extremely well spoken, and he has a knack for boiling things down to their essence. And I think that's what people really like about him. So he'll definitely, I don't know how far he'll go, but he'll definitely be a voice to be heard in this campaign.
he should bring Hillary to the left, if nothing more, which is which would be tremendous.
That's the expectation I've heard.
Yeah. I'm hoping for something more. I think this country needs to change, and I think it needs to change immediately. We have always, and almost in my lifetime, voted for the lesser of two evils, especially after Kennedy was killed. And it's got to stop. It's craziness. Obama was absolutely curtailed by racists, right-wing crazy racists. No question about that. But that said, he signed something that gave Monsanto the go-go, so they can go about things. And they're drilling in the Arctic as we speak. And that's not what he ran on. And, all things considered, we need some change. And I think Bernie's the guy, and I hope so. And I think you're the guy, too. I hope you get elected, my friend.
Well, thanks, Ralph. Well, I certainly appreciate the support. And if you want to find out more about me and my candidacy, I have a website at pollockforsenate.com.
Beautiful. And I'm delighted to speak with you. I'll send you a link to this as soon as I post it. And I'll end the segment the way I do everyone. I will implore you, my guest, and my listeners, to keep your dreams wet and your humor dry. Keep your kids out of military recruiting offices, just in general. And also keep your kid off the laps of clerics wearing dresses. Your family will be much better off. You'll have a much better day. Keep on keeping on, everybody. Thank you, David Pollock, future senator from Ventura County.
Thank you, Ralph. Appreciate it.
Have a great one, man. Over and out, guys.
You too.